So next I committed to talking about considerations for hiring referees. I had originally said I had an agenda with 3 items I wanted to talk about. I've actually thought about it a little further. I've added it to be a total of 4 considerations that I think are important from a tournament's perspective when they're looking for referees, and also from a referee's perspective, what attributes they need to deliver to be considered valuable enough to be hired. So if I had to do a graphic of it, I would probably describe it as or illustrate it as 4 connected circles that include these items. So the headings of these items are this: work ethic, skills and experience, classification, and location. Let me start with work ethic. What people have to realize firstly is that refereeing is a job, and like any job, people respect people that do their job well. So it really comes down to what type of employee are you as a referee. This has nothing to do with your knowledge. It has nothing to do with your rank. It has something to do about how you are an employee. And things I think of a valuable employee are they a hard worker? Do they make an effort? Do they learn quickly? These are all positive attributes for any potential referee candidate. Things that concern me are people that are complainers or that they're lazy. Are you the kind of person that shows up early to an event, fully prepared to go? Are you somebody that shows up late and doesn't pay attention during, preliminary rules discussions that day? If somebody gives you a 15-minute break, do you disappear and take a 35-minute break? When you're given a specific instruction, maybe by the promoter or a head referee, do you follow it, or do you do what you want to do anyway and make maybe the same mistake or disregard what you were just advised to do? These things are all important considerations that I think sometimes can be lost on referees. They just don't understand that they're important, and although you may have gotten the job and you may be doing the job that day, they resonate to the point where when somebody has to evaluate whether they want you back or not, these are the kinds of things they're going to consider when they think about rehiring you, or it's going to be something that you create a negative reputation that may follow you, or a positive reputation that may be reinforced, and others find you desirable because of your reputation. And I think if you recognize inherent problems in your performance, you've got to improve them. And tournaments also have to take the time to say, you know what, this guy didn't do a good job the last time. I don't want him back. You have to send a clear signal that poor performance won't be tolerated, or else, it'll just go on. So I think it's very much like a regular job and has to be understood that way. The second is skills and experience. And obviously there's a wide range here. It could be from a novice or an unskilled position, and I've broken it out like this: a bad referee, an average one, a good one, or a great one. And I think that when I'm saying bad in this description, I'm not necessarily condemning those that are less experienced making mistakes. There's no question, just like your jiu-jitsu journey, there's a learning curve. You can't do everything right the first time you do it. It has to be a learned set of skills that you perfect over time that improves your skill set. But I think bad referees, by definition, are those that do not take the time to improve their skills and find themselves content to languish with poor skills. Those are the kinds of referees that people aren't sure what to do with. A lot of times those are the kinds of referees that when they make a mistake, it's pointed out to them, yet they keep making the same mistake over and over again, and they don't either seem to have an ability to move past it and improve, or they just have a flat-out unwillingness, a don't care attitude, and don't improve in any way. The third classification that I think is critical in hiring a referee is classification, and I've broken that out into three categories as well. Are they a competitor by nature and they also referee? Are they a coach or an instructor and they also referee? Or really, are they just a student of the game and their passion is refereeing? I think this is something that has to be considered. And I think sometimes when I hear criticism about referees, there's a very big push for people to be in that classification of just they're referees. They have a passion for it, and that's what they do. This doesn't mean that competitors and coaches that referee can't be great. It doesn't mean that. But it means oftentimes there's other considerations when you have those folks work for you on a referee team that you have to be aware of. For instance, when there's a frequent competitor that's also a referee, two things come to mind. One is, are they working at a tournament that they are also competing in? My personal opinion is that that is a big distraction when referees are competing in a tournament they're working in, because they're mindful that they have to prepare effectively to be a good competitor that day, which often doesn't have their mind in the right place to be a referee. The referee sometimes becomes secondary to their point of being at the tournament, and that's a problem. The second issue associated with competitors that are referees that you need to be aware of is that they can gain allegiances or preferential treatment for things like teams or competitive standings, things that are outside the scope of neutrality associated with being a referee because of this distraction of being a competitor. I'm not saying they go hand in hand. You're a competitor, so you're distracted by those things. There are plenty of guys that are totally capable of being neutral. But if you're a referee for a particular team and you're also a competitor for that team, your coach is there, your teammates are there, you've got team standings on the line based on your performance, not only as a competitor but as a referee, I think this presents challenges that tournament organizations have to be aware of. Obviously very similar distraction for coaches, that their fellow coaches are also participating perhaps in things in their ring. Their students are in other rings, or even worse, might be in their own ring. These are all considerations that a tournament has to evaluate when they're hiring a referee staff. My own personal opinion is I would not let people compete or coach on a day that they're refereeing, so they can focus specifically on being a neutral participant on a referee team. But that is not the norm, and I find more often than not, a lot of times referee compensation is offset by things like you can compete for free at a tournament you're working at, and that's part of your compensation package. Or if you bring a certain number of competitors as a coach while you're refereeing, your team receives a discount or some other favor along those lines. I just find those to be complicating factors that could end up being mitigating circumstances to problems within the tournament itself, and they all need to be considered as factors when you're hiring. Or the flip side again, coming to a tournament with those expectations of competing and coaching as well. These are things that have to be evaluated. And lastly, the thing that has to be considered when hiring a referee team is the location of the team, and that's obviously broken down to, you know, are they local in close proximity to the tournament itself, or are they far away, and also are they available? It's nice to have people, a squad of potential people that are close, but are they all available on the day that you need them? These are all considerations that a tournament has to go through when they're hiring people. Very often, as an example, I've had, in my own experience as a head referee, I've had folks that are local. They're the preferred choice because there isn't a lot of expense in hiring them by, you know, travel expense. But they decided at the last minute they'd rather coach and bring a team, so they've made themselves unavailable even though they've committed to it. These are sometimes hassles that plague tournaments at the last minute because of these changing factors just based on really the location of the referee team. I mean, ideally, tournaments would love to get the best of the best and just fly in this neutral, you know, great referee team. And honestly, that's a really expensive proposition. It's most often cost prohibitive to do it that way. So while we can all, as fans, spectators, and coaches, say that should be a requirement, I don't think it's economically feasible to have that expectation. Now, some tournaments do make that a provision, that they're willing to fly in people at these prestigious tournaments, and it's worthwhile having them there. But then also there's these mitigating factors I mentioned into classifications, where sometimes they also are competing or they're coaching, and again, those are complicating factors. So these are all, these 4 rings I've mentioned are all considerations that not only do tournaments as well as referees need to be aware of, but also the grappling community as a whole has to understand that these considerations are all being made when selecting a referee team. And, you know, the word on the street is, where the hell do they get these guys? These are some of the thought process behind assembling a team for a tournament. And you know, your mileage is going to vary by the tournament's willingness to accept these various components, as well as the amount of expense they're willing to, you know, absorb to get the best people. So just something I think that's worthwhile noting and being aware of.